What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, early afternoon, I guess. Casey Hendrickson here in the Silver Fox Art Studios. Make sure you support our sponsor, silverfoxart.com. More on that a little bit later on in the program. All right, we've got a lot to cover today, and on the radio show on 95.3 MNC, well, not .com, but you can listen to it, .com, 95.3 MNC. A little bit later on today, we are also going to have a jam-packed show for the big radio show later on in the day, starting at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, which, of course, you can watch right here. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we are streaming to YouTube today. I don't know how long that's going to last. Generally speaking, YouTube censors me. They hit me with tons of copyrights that are frivolous and try to remove my content, and they do it pretty successfully. That's why we primarily stream on Rumble. So if you are a subscriber or you're interested in getting my daily live streams, please subscribe on rumble.com/Casey the host. The link is in the description on YouTube. All right, so I just wanted to start off with something because we're going to go over a video, and I posted about this on my website at theburningtruth.us here just this morning, but we're going to go over a video out of Ottawa. We're also going to kind of hit the weird Gab versus everybody thing, and some of you have heard me reference this before. I think it's ridiculous. It's to the point where it almost just seems like a lot of the criticism of other social media platforms, they're not credible, they're not legitimate, and a lot of them come from legitimate websites, by the way, that are really good at what they do. It's just that they appear to be paid influencers for Gab. I don't know how else to describe it. It's a little strange. It's very juvenile also, and that's one of the issues that I've kind of taken with it. So I'll address that a little bit later on in the program as well. All right, so this from Andy No. I know that some of you, this will be a review, but I promise there's fresh new stuff that will get added to this, including Democrats basically proposing bringing Justin Trudeau's emergency powers into the United States, and at least one U.S. senator saying, hey, we could actually totally do that right now. We already have the laws on the books, laws that we've talked about on my radio show before and have warned you about. So I wanted to start off with this, though, because I think that this is a key component of what we are discussing. This is Andy No. In Canada, Liberal Party politician Yara Sachs says honk honk is code for Heil Hitler. Okay, so let's listen to this. I'm going to turn up the audio here. I just want you to hear her say it in her own twitty words.
How many guns need to be seized? How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler?
Yeah, no, it's not. You're a stupid idiot. Another pasty white liberal woman who is being offended on behalf of other people. And while she's out there saying that, no, the audio is a little low, but you get what she was saying. While she's saying that, I would like to remind everybody that the woman who was trampled by the horse, not a white woman, not a pasty white woman, like what the heck is her name? Daria? I don't know, whatever her name is. Liberal MP Yara Sachs, whatever. She's a sack. So anyway, this is the woman who's trampled by the police in this photo here. And for those of you who saw the drone footage of it, obviously very scary. I'm still waiting for the actual bicycle images to show up because the Ottawa police saying somebody threw a bicycle in front of the horse to try to hurt the horse. That's a rascal. It's a mobility scooter. This person got knocked over. Some people did say that he was trying to protect this woman, who's her, from getting trampled by the horses as they just move the horses through the crowd. So, again, mobility scooter. So this is a disabled person who gets knocked over by a horse, and then a minority woman who is indigenous is trampled by the horse. Probably pasty white guy, probably pasty white guy, probably pasty white guy. So just throwing that up there because we got pasty white guy / woman here, Daria the Sack. She is out there telling everybody that honk honk is an acronym for Heil Hitler, which of course is all they have. And of course it's the pasty white liberals, particularly pasty white liberal women, who are the most racist people in the entire world. But not the world, not the whole world, in Western world. All right. So you've got this, but I want to remind everybody that because I don't know how many people know that this woman is an indigenous person in Canada. And we're told that in Canada that indigenous people are, of course, oppressed. And the liberals in Canada are always talking about how the indigenous people need to be protected from abusive government authority. Kind of weird how that happens. By the way, many of the organizers And senior people for the Canadian truck convoy also happen to be Indigenous. So, but hey, that's okay. It's all about the white supremacists, which will take a funny turn a little bit later on in the program today. All right, so let's go here. So the Ontario Freedom Convoy donors have now had their information published on Google Maps. This is Breitbart. So locations of the Freedom Convoy donors in Ontario, Canada have been published on Google Maps after the names of those who gave money to the crowdfunding platform Give, Send, Go were leaked online. Now remember, this is a hack, okay? This is a hack. This information should not have been leaked. This is a cyber breach. And what ended up happening is the Canadian government, who probably were responsible for the hack, I doubt that this was just some activist, but I could be wrong. So they go ahead and they get this information, and then they just start immediately going after all of these people. And I know that many of you are aware of this, but just wanted to reiterate, this is all review for what's going to be coming up here in just a couple of minutes. So they go out there, they're putting this information all over the place. It gets refresh. I don't know what happened. We've got like massive quantities of speed here in this studio. It's like 500 megs is what I'm pulling down for uploads and downloads. So anyway, I'm sorry about that. So if you've got Google Maps putting this information up there, and as low as $10, when it was on the GoFundMe website, we went through it, and there's only a few people who donated large sums of money. Most people are donating small sums of money because it's a grassroots effort. Now, so this is the account here. CW for a New Republic of Alberta for All. All the people in Ontario and their names and addresses who donated to Freedom were today exposed on Google Maps. Complete breach of privacy. This is war people. And this is the screenshot. And they didn't link to it for privacy reasons, but, you can take a look at all of this. It's like, what in the world is going on here? Now, tell me that is not intimidation. You remember how the left was always trying to publish, and they still will in the United States, they're always trying to publish everybody who owns a gun. They want that to be published information so everybody knows who has a firearm and how many firearms they have. If they can get the brand of firearm that they own. Now, that is an attempt at intimidation. That is telling people who are burglars, that's where the firearms are, go rob that place, steal those guns. But it's also for the authorities to know who is armed and who is not armed. It's one of the reasons that the United States is so opposed to databases, but of course leftists love themselves some databases. So he goes through and he just kind of proves the point here, but he's scratched out some of the information to try and protect some privacy. Not exactly the best way to protect that privacy. That stuff can easily be manipulated and exposed, but it's already on Google anyway. So this is the Washington Post is contacting people whose donation info was leaked and who gave as little as $40 to the truckers to ask them why they did so. There's a source with the email that was provided because the Washington Post, again, is a totalitarian media outfit. But this is horrendous stuff. You're exposing these people. It's like the cafe owner who had to shut down because they were getting threats. Remember that? They did like ice cream or something of that nature. They had to shut down because they were getting threats as a result of all of this. So this is not okay. And Google's helping. Google could easily remove this information, but somehow this is in Google Maps. Okay? So now we move on to this. And I just want to remind you that this is what tyranny looks like, okay? This is the new Ottawa police chief, okay? The old one resigned. This is the new Ottawa police chief. Just reminding everybody that, hey, if you have ever participated in this protest in Ottawa, even if you went home, even if you go home now, even if you stopped, and I know that they've broken this thing up, but I just want to remind you, because this leads into what I'm going to show you here in a second. Even if you leave, even if you abandon the cause and go home, too bad, you're still an enemy of the state, and we're still going to come after you forever. Here's him admitting that.
If the protesters at this point, retreat and go home, are they going to be getting sort of repercussions down the road? Or are you going to be sort of actively pursuing the people that you've been sort of documenting and filming who are still out there protesting? What are your plans after this, after the protest is over?
Thank you. It's a great question. And the simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is the Ottawa police chief, okay? Now tell me that this isn't Brownshirt stuff. When you have a protest where there's no violence, they have caused an inconvenience, but there's no violence. and you don't even give them the opportunity to peacefully disassemble, and you tell them, if you ever showed up here, we're going to investigate and we're going to punish you anyway. Kind of like what's happening with January 6th, because the overwhelming majority of people were peaceful. Even the majority of the people who went into the Capitol were peaceful and did not engage in any violence or rioting or anything. But they're going after them anyway. So this is the police chief in Ottawa reminding everybody, it doesn't matter if you left or you're going to leave and you're going to abandon the cause. It doesn't matter that you were peaceful. We're going to track you down. You're going to have financial sanctions. You're going to be punished. You might be thrown in prison for a peaceful protest that you've abandoned. Now, you cannot overstate how serious it is that this man just said. And I know some of you are like, well, this is in Canada. Well, one of the reasons that Americans got so involved in Brexit, so involved in what's happening in Australia, and so involved in what's happening in Canada is, believe it or not, Americans care about those people. They're our friends. We have very close relationships with all of those countries. And so Americans tend to take an interest in people that, we have, friendly rivalries with, but they're our friends, they're our allies. And we tend to take interest in their well-being. And we're seeing it now in all of these countries. We're seeing their well-being not being tailored to. And right there on our border, on the north side, we're watching, Panties Trudeau have an absolute hissy fit like a juvenile delinquent, and he's just losing control. He's a weak person who's not respected globally, who had an opportunity to take more power in order to bully people and force people to respect him. Let's be honest. I mean, Trudeau is an international joke, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. There's so many memes about this guy not getting handshakes and people turning away from him and nobody taking him seriously because he's just Trudeau and it's just Canada and that sort of stuff. Canada used to be respected, and just at least it was a point of reason, even if they were unwilling to engage to their own detriment. The Canadians were at least considered by the international community as a point of reason. They're not anymore. And that's not the Canadian people's fault. That's Justin Trudeau's fault, because he's a loser, and anybody who voted for him is a loser, and anybody who supports him is a loser, including on the American side of the border. You're all losers. This is a guy telling you that even if you are peacefully protesting there, and again, the Ottawa police have acknowledged no violence. The only violence that we've seen have been from residents of Ottawa who have initiated attacks on the convoy, or from the police. We've seen no acts of violence the other way around. So this is a guy telling you, even if you were peaceful, even if you left, we're still going to punish you with financial sanctions and everything else. Why? Because they impacted the economy? I'm sorry, where is all of the government regulators and health officials and even Justin Trudeau, who impacted the economy for the past couple of years? Why aren't they getting financial sanctions? Oh, well, that was about safety. No, it wasn't, because everything they did was contradictory to what the research showed you were supposed to do. They're still doing things that are contradictory to what the research says to do and what is and is not effective. So why aren't they getting those same punishments? Exactly. Because this isn't about your health. This isn't about safety. This isn't about well-being. This is pure and simple about power and the Great Reset. That's what this is about. So I'm going to play you a it's a disturbing video that happened in Ottawa. It involves a cafe that was actually providing what a cafe provides, services to the truckers, and the truckers are paying customers, and they were threatened, they were intimidated by the police, allegedly the police in Ottawa, but it didn't work out the way that the police would like. We're going to play some of that video coming up in just a couple of minutes. I'm Casey Hendrickson. We got more next right after this. Good afternoon. Welcome back. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. Please hit that subscribe button and make sure you support our sponsors, silverfoxart.com. All right, so this is the post that I put up on my website this morning. All right? By the way, this knife is still available. A lot of these other ones in that limited series are gone. asdefense.com. Okay, so here we go. Canadian brownshirts attempt to threaten and bully cafe owners, but they don't succeed. I give kind of a background on brown shirts there because a bunch of people throw around the term brown shirts. They don't really know what the essay was, so I did that. But this video here, now this is about 15 minutes. I'm not going to play you the whole thing. But I do want to play you several minutes and then skip ahead because I want you to see what actually transpires in Ottawa. Now, this particular video is going to be a little bit small just because it's embedded in my website, so I apologize about that. For those of you watching on your smart television, it shouldn't be an issue. But this is a real problem, okay? When you start to take a look, and this is where, going back to what this douchebag said, that's where you start to see this is what he means. He's going to intimidate anybody he can. So the former police chief stepped down. Anybody who is willing to trample on, literally trample on people, was appointed as the new police chief, and he's doing whatever Justin Trudeau says, probably because they're shower buddies. I don't know. Not that anything is wrong with that. I'm just trying to explain why somebody would actually want to do this to their own people. So we go into the Ottawa situation here. So the brown shirts, and I don't think that using the term brown shirts is too inflammatory or hyperbole at this point in time, and you'll see why. So I want to play this. So I'm going to cue up my desktop audio here. I want you to just kind of watch, listen. I'll do some commentary. We'll skip around the video to some of the juicy parts of it that I can remember, and you'll kind of see what's going on. But here, essentially what we have is we have a cafe in Ottawa that wasn't making hardly any money. They were bringing in, according to comments on YouTube who say that they're familiar with this story, about $150 a week or so because of the lockdowns. So the truckers come, the cafe says, well, there's people here who need, food and coffee and stuff like that. We're a business. That's what we provide. We're going to open and we're going to serve them. The problem is that you're not supposed to serve the truckers or anything else because now you're aiding and abetting according to the tyrannical dictator laws that have been in place in Canada now. So because of that, this cafe owner is being targeted by so-called law enforcement, and they locked their doors to keep the cops out. Interesting tactic. So the police didn't like that, and the police have now approached this cafe and ordered them to open up. So this is how this went down.
You can actually see what's about to happen here.
There's the police outside the cafe telling the owners to come to the front door. And look how many of them there are. He's going to pan the camera around. He's going to show you that they are surrounding the entire place.
This guy's about to try to take a picture of me. It's all right. I got my face in front of my camera.
Now, the reason that the Ottawa police are doing it, but look at this white supremacist, that lady there. Now, she's one of the owners, so keep an eye on this lady. She is not white. She is not white. But remember, it's all about how Hitler and neo-Nazis and white supremacists and stuff, when everybody who is against the truckers is a pasty white person. But the truckers have a pretty diverse population with a lot of indigenous people. But I digress. So anyway, here it goes. Now, the police, if they are police, the police are taking images of everybody in there because they're all suspects now in this criminal investigation that the Ottawa police chief was telling you about in that last clip that we played.
So now they're surrounding the building, taking pictures of lawful people.
All they're doing is eating breakfast. That's it. Well, maybe it's breakfast. I don't know. I'm going to assume it's breakfast. But they're blocking all of the entrances.
Somebody get a message to Joe, maybe if you're not on here.
All right. So there's the owner. That guy's the owner.
Head Khalil.
So that cop's name is Ahed Khalil. Right.
They're here for an inspection.
There's that white supremacist lady again who also owns the cafe. I think it's his wife. But of course, According to Trudeau acolytes, she's a white supremacist. And Justin Trudeau isn't a white supremacist, even though he wears blackface on a routine basis and makes fun of black people. But I digress. So you see that the owners are not caving. They're not opening the door. The cops are telling them, you have to open the door.
They're saying that they're gonna break it.
Now look at her. That female officer is yelling at him. Screaming and yelling.
Okay, share this out, you guys. Get it out everywhere. Now. Get it
So,
out.
open the door. We're going to break the
They're saying
window.
They're gonna break the window. They already walked around back, you guys, so.
I know they can't get in because they're breaking in and then they'll have to pay the thing for the
All right, so
Here's your tax service. Here's your taxes.
so now another cop is going to try. Hey, come back and talk to us. After the woman screams at him, she has a hissy fit. Knocking on the door. Come here. Here's the owner again.
I'd like to know who that lady is.
Oh, it's the same lady. Okay.
I don't trust you.
I don't blame him. I don't trust you.
Break that wall, so I don't have to fear. Come on.
Yeah, you just told me you're going to break my door and my windows. Why would I trust you? He's got a point.
I'm not going to open the door. This is private property. Yeah, I'll take the ticket later on.
Yeah, we don't know what this guy's saying. I'm not going to open the door. This is private property,
can't hear 'cause he's
he
wearing a
says.
mask.
Okay. Skip ahead a little bit.
Share this out.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Look, look.
Because you know we got the people on our side. People are
You're breaking the law.
She's mad. I don't blame her for being mad. Of course, you know, everybody in Canada on the Liberal side has been calling her a white supremacist for a couple of weeks now, so I'm sure she's a little irritated with that.
You can go. I don't talk to you. Yeah, right here.
Okay.
You have no more money. I know, the global system is behind. No, listen. Sir, with all due respect, in the name of Jesus, I command you to go. In the name of Jesus, I command you to go.
With all due respect, in the name of Jesus, I command you to go. Is there any doubt as to why I titled the stream today after that? So, you know, it goes on, and there's some other stuff that kind of happens here. So I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit, and then we'll get to the part where I think it's a good part to end. They had threatened to take away their
sharing
business
this out, you
license
guys.
and their business and everything else, and they said, go ahead, we've already lost everything anyway.
I know. No, I know. I saw this before, okay? Okay, so I'm protected by this. When I break the door, go ahead. Okay, so at this point, there's no more discussion. Give me the ticket. I don't care because
So I'm protected by this door. If you want to break it down, go ahead. If you want to give me the ticket, give me the ticket. That's fine. We're done talking.
now they will arrest me.
I know you're saying nobody will arrest us, but we don't trust the police because we see what they've done. We have no more trust in the police anymore.
They
Okay, and so now the person who's at the door is telling them, nobody's going to arrest you guys. Just open the door. Any of you believe for a second that they're not going to be arrested? Of course they're going to be arrested. I mean, there are people who are peaceful over the past couple of days who are being beaten and trampled by horses, for crying out loud. And most of you know my position on law enforcement. You know, it's resisting law enforcement even passively is never going to look pleasant. Law enforcement has a job to do, but the videos that I saw with the context that was available clearly showed people being abused by law enforcement in Ottawa. There's no other way to describe what happens. Now, if they release body camera footage that seems to show some other angle where the suspect or the protester, whatever you want to refer to them as, was reaching for something or was a threat to those officers, and that's why they use physical force, I will change my opinion on that. But I didn't see any of that. All I saw was people being abused and beaten and trampled without any just cause. And a police chief, this douchebag, going out there and telling everybody that we're going to prosecute you and hunt you down forever after this, whether you did anything violent or not, whether you left early at all. If you ever showed up to this thing, we're going to come after you. There is no better case. Of course, we don't have a president right now, but there's no better case for the United States to offer asylum than to offer asylum for Canadian truckers. And I'm not saying that they would all take it, but I mean, let's be honest, that's a real asylum claim. They're being politically persecuted by their government for committing no acts of violence whatsoever. That is 100% a legitimate asylum claim in the United States. They could come to the United States. They'd be caught and released like we do with everybody at the southern border. They can hang out here for several years until their court date, or they could stay forever and then get free citizenship from the Democrats in the future. Who knows? All right, so anyway, so again, you got somebody in a different uniform come out, just open the door, nobody's going to arrest you, and of course the owners of the cafe are sitting there saying, we don't trust you and we don't trust the police. We don't trust the police anymore after what they've been doing. We don't trust you that we're not going to be arrested. You can say it all you want.
Trampled a lady with a horse.
No, no, you have no power.
Just a minute, but once we leave.
You have no power, he says.
They're gonna come. So that's where we, yeah, your trust is right here, but once we leave this property, that's when they come. And we don't trust any of that. So if we have to stay here overnight.
Yep, once we leave this property, we don't trust them.
We just have
That's
to
when
stay
they'll
till
come.
Tuesday. Don't
So
worry.
if we have to stay here overnight, we will.
The writing will be, the decision will be made at Parliament. Okay,
Okay,
thank
we'll
you.
see you Tuesday.
That's called stubbornness. Stand up for your right. Don't let them take your rights.
All right, this is key. Keep watching this.
They were trying to bully. I'm sorry that it has to come to this way, but now you see what the police is up to. They're not even police. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they had the courage to show their face now at this point. Wow, interesting.
Now, what he's referring to is there are officers, and he actually says this at one point in the video. There are officers that are not from Ottawa who are being brought in. And there's a lot of speculation, and, you have some of these law enforcement entities in Ottawa who, they're hiding their badges, they were hiding their name tags, and, they weren't showing who they were. And so a lot of people are, speculating that maybe they weren't law enforcement. You'll hear a reference here about inmates that were released, and maybe those are inmates. I don't think that's the case. There are law enforcement units, even that operate in the United States, that do protect their identities because they typically work against cartel or gang violence and that sort of thing. I don't know how any of that would apply in Canada, but they do allude to that in this clip. But this is the owner saying, look, you got to stand up for yourself. They're threatening to intimidate us, but he did say it is interesting. They're showing their faces now because that's not something that they have been doing over the past several days, in spite of there being no threats of violence coming from the trucking convoy.
We want this war.
Whoa, hey, whoa, let's not celebrate yet.
If they want to come in, they have to break the window. The building, I lease. The windows are not mine.
The building I lease, the windows are not mine.
Number three, they want to inspect. Inspect what? That was an excuse. Because inspection is not happening during Wednesday, what do you call it, Saturday, Sunday, and a holiday. But they can do it during the business days. Now, they say I have a business license, okay? All right. And they say they're going to take the business license away for life. Okay. What do we have to lose anyways? I have nothing to left after this. So I don't comply to that. I'm sorry, I can't. This is the tactic of bullying and scaring and whatever, but when you have the Lord Jesus in you, you're not afraid. You look them straight in the eyes, and they're very upset because we don't comply. And the lady says, I don't care, I'll break down the window, I'll come in. Where is she now? And if she does it, she's breaking the law.
She's right now. They're
And this-
trying to
this is
find
funny.
out
Look at
whether
this.
or not they can.
There's the huddle.
Actually break the
There's the
window,
huddle. Are we actually
which
allowed to like break into
they're
the
pretty
company?
lawless right now, so who knows?
Can we go in there?
she
No,
says
you can't
she's
go in there.
Supposedly bylaw officer, and he says he's a bylaw officer, but he's not.
Yeah.
He has a jacket on of the bylaw officer, but he's not a bylaw.
All the police on the front line yesterday had all their tags covered. They didn't show their identification. Yeah.
And
The
today they were-
tactical riot gear guys had nothing on their face covered, everything. We heard there's 200 prisoners released yesterday or 2 days ago.
All right. So, and again, I don't think that any of them are inmates that were released or anything like that. And there are units that do that. Okay. And a lot of people don't like that, but that's even the case in the United States. Occasionally there's units that showed up at some of the protests and things like that where they weren't, being tagged. That's actually fairly common for certain types of units in the U.S. So I would assume that would be the case for law enforcement in Canada. But as you can see, that was it. Open the door. We're going to break it down. You need to come out. You need to comply. You need to do this. You need to do that. No, I don't. You don't have a warrant. We need to inspect your building. You don't do inspections on the weekends or holidays. So during the week, I can understand the proper authorities coming back and doing an inspection, but you're not doing an inspection today. You don't have any just cause to come into my business, period, end of story. Come back with a warrant is basically what this guy is saying. And then somebody else comes over and says, well, if you come out, you're not going to be arrested. Nobody's going to arrest you. Yeah, we don't trust you. Sorry, we don't trust those guys. And the moment that we leave, they're going to arrest us. So if we have to stay here all night until Parliament does their thing, and of course, Parliament upheld Trudeau's tyrannical rule. And so this is just something that you need to see. Now, this happened a little while ago, but it's something that you need to see as is happening in Canada. All this business is doing is providing their services to people in the area. That's it. Just like any other business who opens their doors. And because they're now getting business, they want them shut down and they want everybody in there taken into custody and documented so they can have financial sanctions and everything else put on them later on. That's what was going on. It's 100% a total and complete intimidation tactic, just like the SA, aka the Brownshirts. We got more coming up. Casey Hendrickson here, and make sure you hit that subscribe button here on Rumble. This is another sponsor, asdefense.com. All right, so here's Suckface Trudeau. Suckface Trudeau really loves himself some Chinese communism. Here is Trudeau, who, by the way, I mean, he essentially is a communist. I mean, we've talked about this before. I know that we're not alone in this. It's interesting watching American liberals say that Justin Trudeau is not on the left. You're a flippin' moron if you say that. Justin Trudeau is the epitome of progressive left. He was an idol of theirs up until now. And even now, a majority of Democrats, polling done in the United States, a majority of Democrats approve of what Justin Trudeau has done to these truckers. Those same people would not have approved of the same tactic to be used against Antifa, who actually murdered and raped people and took over entire city blocks, including a police station, and burned federal buildings and tried to burn down a courthouse with people inside. And so those same Democrats who support Justin Trudeau breaking up peaceful truckers in Canada would not have supported the same tactic to break up those riots and the Black Lives Matter riots that happened all summer. Okay? They would not support those tactics. We know that because when Donald Trump mentioned even using the National Guard, They had a collective conniption fit about how that was another impeachable offense, even though Trump never committed an actual impeachable offense. So, this is Justin Trudeau, just in case you don't believe me. This is Justin Trudeau talking about how amazing the Chinese dictatorships are because it allows them to do so much. Freedom is so cumbersome for leftists, ladies and gentlemen. Freedom is a pain in their backside. It is a thorn in their paws. They hate freedom. It slows their basically slows their advance. Okay, they want to move in a direction that other people don't want to go in. So typically what leftists do is they lie to you, they deceive you, and then they get elected, and then they show their true colors. In the United States, it's been incremental, and the right has failed to adapt to that. Hopefully, the right is getting smarter about dealing with that, but in other countries, it's been much more swift. But Canada's always been a left-leaning country. It's just kind of who they are. And Justin Trudeau is the epitome of a progressive leftist, a Marxist, a socialist. It's just who this guy is. And here's him admitting it, full force, no disputing anymore.
Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Because they're,
look at that stupid face.
Is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
Oh, is it?
We need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar.
Oh.
I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted.
Oh, okay. Isn't that nice? So, yeah, the Great Reset is a total conspiracy theory, guys. Except, Davos admits that the Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. But isn't this interesting? This is a guy who, he smirks. He's like, China. And he doesn't smirk as in, I shouldn't be saying this. He's like, no, China. It's an endearing smirk. They allow that dictatorship there, which he acknowledges is a dictatorship. And of course, Winnie the Flu is a dictator. That dictatorship there, it allows them to turn on a dime and invest in however they want and do whatever they want. Because, that freedom thing is a real pain in the butt. Now, of course, China doesn't really care about solar or green energy. Justin Trudeau is an idiot. China doesn't use that crap. China produces that crap for Western societies to have less efficient power grids. Period. Now, maybe one day that will advance. China doesn't use that stuff. China uses the cheap, mass-producible power that they can get, which is reliable. They don't care how dirty it is. China hasn't pivoted to green technologies. China talks about pivoting to green technologies. They just haven't done it. And isn't it interesting that they keep fooling idiots like Trudeau into thinking that they're actually going to do it? They're not. They're not interested in it. It's not efficient enough or affordable enough to be a mass source of power yet. One day, perhaps it'll get there, but not now. But Justin Trudeau, their dictatorship allows them to turn on a dime. Huh. I wonder where he got the idea to use the Emergencies Act to turn on a dime. And what is he doing? He's turning on a dime. And as I told you on yesterday's radio show on 95.3 MNC, you've got all of these individuals in Trudeau's government now saying, hey, if you're a Trump supporter, we're going to drain your bank account. And by the way, some of these temporary measures that we're only going to be temporary because of the emergency powers, guess what? We're going to make them permanent. His own government is now saying it. And it took them, less than a week to go from this is temporary and narrowly defined and targeted to, we're going to make some of these things permanent because we feel like we should probably have this power year-round. That's how it always works. And people are always naive and dumb enough to fall for it. So, could it possibly happen in the United States of America? Of course it could. Here's a Democrat. Here is a Democrat. You know what? We should just seize trucks from the American convoy. 38,000 truckers participating in the American convoy now. It's going to be headed to D.C. We should just take their trucks away from them and give them to growing businesses. Have you seen the voting profiles of small businesses? They don't tend to vote Democrat. Democrat Representative Ruben Gallego from Arizona called for seizing the trucks of protesters headed to Washington, D.C., and then giving the property to businesses looking to grow. It's a perfect time to impound and give the trucks to small trucking companies looking to expand their business, he said. Trucker convoy could shut down the D.C. Beltway tomorrow. Wow. I wonder if he ever said anything like that about Black Lives Matter, Antifa, seizing any of their stuff and giving it to, law-abiding citizens who actually care about the community instead of wanting to burn it down and kill and rape and pillage. This is a guy who should be voted out of office immediately. Depending on what the recall laws are in Arizona, I don't know that he could be recalled at House of Representatives. But, yeah. This is an American Democrat going, I really like what Justin Trudeau is doing. Let's go ahead and seize their trucks and give it to people that we like. Because, again, it's not just going to be to growing businesses. It's going to be the right growing businesses that they'll give those trucks to, right? And, of course, there's no legal, no constitutional authority whatsoever for this to ever happen. You couldn't even use your standard laws where police seize, the asset forfeiture laws where police seize those assets. You couldn't even use that here because we're not dealing with actual criminal intent. So Rand Paul agrees with this notion, and he refers to some of the laws that are on the books that we have warned you about and others have warned you about for many, many years. So Rand Paul, Trudeau's Emergencies Act can be implemented in the United States. He has warned that the emergency powers being wielded by Trudeau's regime in an effort to crush protests in Canada also exist in the U.S. and can be implemented at any time by the government. So he went on Based Politics podcast. Never heard of it, but I'm glad that he went on there to describe the statute being used by the Canadian Prime Minister as very, very dangerous, noting that we have the same sort of statutes here, and I have long time been an opponent of these. So he says, we actually have in the United States an Emergencies Act. This is true. And when it happened, we warned you all about it. It allows the president to shut down the internet. Right. We tried talking about this when it happened because there were several attempts to get this done before it finally got done. And it was always the same arguments. Look, you do not at any time want the government to have the ability to shut down the internet. And, of course, the government would always argue, no, it wouldn't shut down the whole internet, and it would only be in very limited circumstances, but that's not how the law is written. The law is written in a way that they could justify it pretty much any way that they wanted to. The senator further noted that he tried to get Democrats to ally with libertarian-leaning Republicans to restrict emergency power legislation during the Trump administration, because, again, this is the thing that people always forget. You're not going to be in power forever. The other side will be in power at some point in the future, and they will wield the same power that you wielded, and you're going to pitch a fit about it. So here in Elkhart, Indiana, basically the filibuster was killed by the Democrat city council. So the Democrats control the city council now, but Republicans controlled it the last time. So the Democrats who control the city council now, what they have done is they've effectively gotten rid of the debate requirements so they can vote down the minority and just continue on with the vote. So if Republicans who are in the minority now want to debate an issue, maybe filibuster it, that sort of thing, Democrats could just vote to kill it and move on with the vote. Now, guarantee you, because it's Elkhart, goes back and forth, Elkhart Republicans will have control of the council one day, and they will use that exact same power to shut Democrats down, and those same Democrats who supported this now will pitch a fit about Republicans not allowing debate. You started it. And this is how it consistently goes. And this is how you have that steady flow of eroding freedom, and government continues to not function the way that government was supposed to function. Senator Mike Lee had some reforms that he put forward on the Emergency Act, and it's something that we should look at because these things go on and on, Paul explained. He added, there are some emergencies in the U.S. that have been going on for many, many decades, and the president can just renew them every year. There's no real stopping him. And so the emergency edict that Trudeau has done in Canada allows him to do some horrendous thing, allows him to stop travel, allows him to detain people without trial. Now, we don't know that he's going to do that, but it is very, very worrisome that he might. And, of course, the police chief in Ottawa said that they're going to do that. So you can listen to it. The podcast is right there. Based Politics is the show. I have not heard it before, so I don't even know anything about it. But, again, good that they got Senator Paul on. So now let's take a look at Google. Remember, Google was back here, and Google was, where did it go here? I want to make sure we have this. Hold on a second. All right, so go back here. Google Maps has the donors who donated to the trucking convoy listed on maps with all of their personal information, okay? Google is the ones that fact check everybody. Google owns YouTube, which is going to fact check and censor this live stream and this video later on, like they've been doing to my channel for years, which is why I don't use YouTube anymore for my primary video thing. I just upload there because occasionally I'll catch some new people and I send them to Rumble. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go to rumble.com/Casey the host. I do this live stream every day, and then my radio show is live streamed on Rumble every single day for 3 hours. So Google-funded fact-check team is a handful of Indians with no experience in journalism in a small town near Bangladesh. So Facebook is already, well, was it Facebook? I think Facebook, might have been Google, might have been Facebook though. They had said that their fact checkers were basically just opinion. And if you go through and you get these fact checks on Facebook in particular, and you click on the fact check, it doesn't actually take you to anything that has any facts that says you're wrong. It links you to some 22-year-old dweebus intern somewhere who says that you're wrong, but they won't actually provide any evidence that you're wrong. And I know that because the stuff that I post are actual scientific research, and then they take it down. And when I click on why this is not true, it just goes to some dingus's statement on why it's not true, and they don't actually link to anything or provide any sources. I did, but they didn't. So anyway, last week, Instagram notified me that a viral post that I had published was fact-checked by a group called the Healthy Indian Project. Huh? My mother is from Bombay, and I did lose 40 pounds last year, but I didn't think that they had created an entire unit just for me, so I decided to find out who this group is. My findings are bemusing. The Healthy Indian Project, THIP, appears to have started as a fitness and lifestyle site in 2018. It's a lifelong, the guy who started, lifelong marketing consultant from a small city in India. The group is a member of the high-profile Pointer Network. Now, we've covered Pointer many times on the show. Basically, anything involved in the Pointer Network is not trustworthy. Just put it that way. Let's see. So, though two separate audits of its memberships reveal concerns about nonpartisanship, transparency in the organization's finances, with a particular focus on a grant from the U.S.-based search engine Google, the applicant has shared proof of its status as a legally registered company. It has provided a balance sheet that indicates that the funding comes from its directors. They have mentioned a grant from Google that does not reflect in the balance sheet. We do not know if it accounts for more than 5% of the revenue. The balance sheet does not reflect any income or expenses. Okay, that's the IFCN, which is the International Fact-Checking Network, which is also oftentimes very problematic. So anyway, so they go through, and basically it's just a bunch of people, okay? So he's got the rest of his, Raheem Kassam has got there. So he's got all of this on here about how this group is not really a fact check. What? So they're just a bunch of Indians in Bangladesh who don't have any journalism experience. You can read this whole article. I'm not going to do the whole thing to you, but you can read this whole article here, and there's no journalism at all involved in any of this. It's just a small group of people. I mean, not like journalists are trustworthy, but it's like they're just some people here. Okay. Nishant is alleged to be a, quote, seasoned journalist with over 18 years of experience, but even a cursory glance at his LinkedIn page shows no such history. Instead, he himself claims to have worked for something called NewsX for 1 year, the Millennium Post for less than a year, and THIP for 2 years and 5 months. Where's his 18 years of journalism experience? Where's that? What, 18 years ago he took a course? And so because he took a course, that counts? It's just further proof. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's just further proof that the fact checks, air quote, the fact checks are complete and total trash. And I know that most of you know that. But I want to remind you, too, that fact checkers have been used by tyrants throughout human history. Probably the most relevant example of it that could be applied to the way that things are done in modern-day America is how Castro used them. Castro used to use professors. Okay, what would the professors do? They would go on radio and television and in the newspapers, and those professors would belittle any other professor that didn't toe the Castro line, right? Then they would use they would use journalists, and those journalists would go out there and they'd write these opinion articles or these fact checks on other journalists who didn't toe Castro's line. And they used an army of these experts, sound familiar, to go out there and discredit people who are giving accurate information to the Cuban people. And all of these folks were paid for by the Castro regime, which is what you see now with CNN and MSNBC and the Washington Post and the New York Times and all of these other newspapers and news entities in the United States, which are all essentially a part of a couple of companies. And those companies, of course, are hugely influential in Democratic Party politics. And so you've got some companies that own 50 media outlets, for crying out loud, but it's owned by the same company. And that company happens to give tons of money to Democrats, gets tons of kickbacks from Democrats as a result. So there you go. It's just ridiculous stuff. Now, I want to use this because obviously the left perpetuates these censorship and things like that a heck of a lot more than the right. But I wanted to just take some time here because I've told you before, I'm on Gab. I don't use Gab a ton. I just haven't found, I haven't found my groove on Gab. I just haven't. I still use it. I think they're really good at creating technology. Some of the stuff that they have done for the parallel economy is amazing. I think that what Torba is doing in that field is where his true calling really is, not necessarily Gab. Gab is the Wild West, and there's a lot of people where the Wild West is not going to be very comfortable for them to hang out as far as a social media network is concerned, but I think it's important that a network like Gab exists. My issue is Torba goes scorched earth on any other network that isn't Gab. And even if they're aligned with him ideologically, because they're not Gab, they're not true free speech platforms and things like that, it honestly, it drives me nuts. And it comes off as unhinged, and it doesn't come off as mature at all in any way, shape, or form. But beyond that, he now has what some are claiming are now paid activists that are out there attacking other social networks on behalf of Gab in order to prop Gab up. And again, Gab's fine. I don't have any issue with Gab. But most people who engage in social media are not going to want to be on the Wild West. But it's very important that a network like that exists for those who do. And at least there will always be, hopefully, always be a place like Gab where you will be able to say whatever the hell you want as long as you're not breaking the law. The issue that I have with it is stuff like this, okay? And I like National File a lot. But I have had to fact check a ton of articles on National File with very misleading headlines pertaining to competitors of Gab. And I mean, where they're claiming people are being censored who are not being censored. And there's some individuals in the conservative right, relative newcomers. They're not people who are veterans, have been around for a long time like me or others. And they're constantly claiming, I've been censored. And you go and you look and they haven't been. It's basically just a normal tech issue that they're getting really uppity about or what have you. But Truth Social slapped sensitive material label on post from Stu Peters. And I was very curious as to how Truth Social was going to handle this. And a lot of people have been, because a lot of people are like, well, they're using these services for the algorithms and stuff like that are very similar to what, YouTube and Facebook and Twitter use. And is that concerning to you, Casey? I'm like, yeah, sure it is. The issue isn't so much the algorithm, though. It's how the algorithm is used. The algorithms can always be used. It's the human influence behind the algorithms that is the problem. So on Twitter and Facebook, they are censoring content they don't like. And they're tweaking the algorithm to do that very specifically. As long as that doesn't happen on Getter or Parler or Truth Social or what have you, there really shouldn't be any complaints from people on the right. That doesn't mean that things won't get flagged. It doesn't mean that things won't get hidden or what have you. So, sensitive material label on a post from Stu Peters. Okay, so let's go through this now. And Colin McHugh is one of these people that I think is being paid by Gab to write this stuff. I've had to fact check some of his stuff in the past, but I digress. The new Trump-backed Twitter alternative Truth Social slapped a sensitive material warning on a post from Stu Peters on Tuesday. This content may not be suitable for all audiences, reads the notice that users must acknowledge before viewing Peters' post. The new social media platform, which has been billed as a free speech alternative to Twitter, launched on Monday. So Stu Peters goes out and says, I'm already being censored on Truth Social. Okay. Is that really censorship, though? Now, you can look at it, and I think it's perfectly fine based on what the content is. And I'll let me read the content before I address it, because I think that's only fair to Stu. Let's see. Peters wrote all of this on Gab. He says, I said, the people in our government responsible for allowing our kids to be killed with these dangerous COVID shots should be put on trial and executed. All right, so it's calling for executions. Free speech isn't free. And the post was slapped with a warning label from Truth Social, but left undisturbed by Gab and Telegram. Now, I primarily use Telegram. I prefer Telegram. Telegram's great. Follow me on Telegram at Casey the Host. You can follow me on Gab at Casey the Host, too. You're just not going to get a lot of content from me. All right, so Stu says he's being censored on Truth Social. Now, let me just ask you a theoretical question here. Is being allowed to post your content and not have your content removed, is that censorship? Because that's what happened here. Yeah, there's a sensitive content warning there. Let me scroll down just a little bit so you can see it. All right, sensitive content. He's calling for the execution of people. Okay? And I'm not saying that I necessarily disagree to some extent on what he is saying, but okay, this content may not be suitable for all audiences. Okay? And then they ask you to show the content. That's not censorship. It really isn't censorship. Stu Peters is an absolute right to look at this and go, what I wrote doesn't warrant this, and that's a little silly. Okay, and I would agree with him on that, by the way. But it's not censorship. It wasn't taken down. Anybody who has access to Stu Peters' page on Truth Social, which is only available to Apple users at this point in time. I'm waiting for it to go to the grown-up adult platform of Android. So it's on the kid platform of Apple. But it's the only reason I'm not on there. I will be on there when it happens, because I think that Truth Social will probably end up being the biggest thing. But Truth Social is not taking his content down. And as long as Truth Social is not preventing anybody from being able to see his content who would want to see his content, he's not being censored. But putting a warning label on it and going, hey, if you want to see this, we're just letting you know it might be sensitive. That's not censorship at all, because the content is not being limited or moved. What you're simply doing is you're giving the casual browser the choice to see it. Now, will that possibly dissuade some people from seeing it? And is that the weird angle that they're going to and looking at for censorship? Maybe. But let's be honest, anybody who's actually seeking out Stu Peters' show is going to want to hear what he has to say, and they're not going to be concerned about potential sensitive content. You know, it's kind of like when you show graphic images of people who engaged in gun battles or war or police shootings or even just animal nature and that sort of stuff. You know, there are casual viewers on there that may not want to see blood and guts and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with putting just a little blocker on there and saying, hey, if you want to see this, that's fine. We'll let you, but we're just letting you know it might be problematic for some people. Now, again, I think the sensitive content warning on this post is stupid. I don't think that it warrants that. I agree with Stu Peters 100% on that, but it's not censorship. And to call it censorship is just factually completely wrong. It's not. You can argue that it's ridiculous and a little overbearing, and perhaps it's a part of the algorithm being new, needing some tweaks on it and that sort of stuff. You know, a lot of this stuff that happens on these new platforms happens because they're new platforms and they have to tweak their code as time goes on, and it has to learn. The algorithm has to actually learn. So for all we know, this is not something that the people at Truth Social would ever want censored, but it's just how it showed up in their code. And it just picked it up, automatically did it. There probably wasn't a human being behind it. If Stu Peters appealed that, they would probably remove it. But it's not censorship. Not at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, here's why I'm pointing this out. Gab got canceled before anybody else. Gab got pulled off of the internet before anybody else, and Gab had to adjust, okay? Gab had to learn that they needed to own their own servers. They needed to do their own thing. That was the only way that they weren't going to be messed with by the powers that be. It is a lesson that everybody else needs to learn. Gab is leading the way there, and they're leading the way with technology. Nobody should forget that. So even if Gab is a social network, doesn't end up being the biggest social network in the world, in spite of Torba's efforts here, their technology development is going to be critical for the parallel economy going forward in the future. But listen to this. This article here from the Federalist is dead on. It's dead on. Parler was taken off of the app stores. Gab was taken off of the app stores. Other social networks have been taken off of the app stores. Trump doesn't want his network taken off of the app stores. He wants his network to have mainstream appeal. To have mainstream appeal, there are going to be some things that have to be done. But so long as those things are done in an appropriate way and not the way that the psychopaths at Facebook and Twitter run things, you'll probably be fine. And if that changes, certainly we will call it out just like we have called it out on everybody else. A lot of the attacks on Getter, in spite of my issues with Getter, a lot of the attacks on Getter are frankly nonsensical and stupid. They're not intellectual. They're not true. They're not based in reality. They're not based on fact at all. They're just attacking Getter because Getter became the hot item at the moment. And frankly, it looks like jealousy took over. That's what it looks like. Getter became the hot item. When Parler was the hot item, Parler was attacked by Gab. When Getter was the hot item, Getter was attacked by Gab. When Truth Social was a hot item, Truth Social was attacked by Gab. You're sensing a pattern here? And Torba, to an extent, is right. You can say more on his platform than you can on the others. That makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And so there's always going to be people who are like, I don't want to hang out in the Wild West. I would rather have something a little bit more mainstream. And it's okay to not want that. It's okay to want to be on Gab. What I don't understand is the stupid battle between all of them of attacking each other. You know, if Gab wants to do a thing and saying, hey, look, True Social's fine, Getter's fine and everything else, but we're just letting you know you're going to have more restrictions there than you will here. Nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. It's the way that he's going about it that doesn't make any sense. So Donald Trump is to build and protect True Social with both hands tied behind his back. Rachel Bavard is 100% correct here. So Twitter can let content that would seem to be in clear violation of Apple's terms run wild, while Truth Social will likely be slapped down if it allows the same. She's right. This is something that has to be factored in to you users out there. Forget about the Gabalites out there, but for you average user who are looking at Truth Social or Getter or Parler, any of the other ones that you're looking at, Parler is basically bots right now, but if you're looking at those networks, okay, as an alternative, you're going to have to understand that there's going to be more eyes on Truth Social than there is on Twitter or Facebook. Twitter and Facebook can allow child trafficking, and Apple and Google don't care. They can also allow, terrorists and criminals and racists and anti-Semites. And as long as you're racist against white people and Jewish people, you're good. You can be on there. Truth Social can't allow any of that. So any little thing that could be used against Truth Social to get it removed from the App Store is going to be scrutinized, and Truth Social has to be prepared to deal with that. If the way that they deal with that, okay, if the way that they deal with that is a sensitive content warning instead of removing content or banning users, and that is a way to satisfy the censors out there who are calling, even from the government, who are calling for this to be taken down. Isn't that worth it? Stu Peters didn't lose any content. Stu Peters was able to post whatever he wanted. They just let everybody know, hey, you might not like this. You okay to see it? Yes, no, whatever. It's your choice, right? But content wasn't taken down and Stu Peters wasn't banned. If that's the way to keep Apple and Google off of Truth Social's back, so Truth Social can continue to do what it wants to do, which is replace Twitter, would that be an acceptable compromise? For many of you, I suppose it would be no, because many of you don't understand the definition of censorship, and you just assume anytime somebody is given the choice of whether or not to see your content, that is censorship. That's not censorship. That's not how that works. That is not how that works at all. It's a silly argument, but It's one that is being made by people who I think are influencers for a particular network, and it's silly. It's absolutely silly. It's just nonsensical stuff. But this is a really good article that I would encourage you to read, and it's over on the Federalist. But Donald Trump has to build and protect Truth Social with both hands tied behind his back, because you know full well the swamp, the tech giants, they all want this app gone. So they will be looking for any excuse, any single excuse to remove it. And if they go to Truth Social and they go, hey, Stu Peters, who they're already, they call him a white supremacist and all that stuff. And I don't know a lot about Stu. I've seen a couple of clips because he's had some people from our area on his show as well. But other than that, I don't know a ton about the guy. And I don't have anything against him. He's popular. By all means, please continue to do what you do and be popular and cater to your audience. But if the choice is from Apple and Google, hey, you've got this Stu Peters guy on there, and he's calling for people, doctors, to be executed because of the COVID vaccines, you got to take him down, or we're going to delete your app. What's Truth Social's choice? They've got a couple. Choice number one, let him take the app down, destroy the platform, and then deal with all of the same problems that everybody is dealing with. And whether we want to admit it or not, Gab will never be mainstream because Gab is limited in how it participates in that tech marketplace. And that's not Gab's fault. But they could go that route. And if they do go that route, that's even bad for Gab because they're not going to be able to compete with the money behind Truth Social if Truth Social decides to do all of this stuff on their own. They will have the power. They will have the money. Gab will always be at a disadvantage there because Gab relies upon user contributions and paid memberships to fund them. Gab is not a massive, well-oiled money machine like Truth Social would be should the people behind Truth Social decide, okay, we'll pull it off the platforms and we'll go it alone. Going to be impossible for Gab to compete with them. Okay, so it's not a great move for Gab either way, but that could be a decision that Truth Social makes. But it's going to cost them a lot of money, and it's going to be a lot harder, and it won't be mainstream. So that's not a great option. Gab did that option, but they didn't have a choice. They didn't want that option. Gab started off doing it like everybody else does it, and they paid the price because they didn't realize, just like everybody else didn't realize, that they were going to come for them. Okay, so Gab had to learn that lesson the hard way. And while others following them haven't learned that lesson, Truth Social is trying to do it in a way that they can still be mainstream. All right. So the other option is, one option is to be like Gab, just go alone. Okay. Not ideal. The other option is they can take content down. They can delete Stu Peters' post here. They can get rid of Stu Peters as a user. Stu Peters is verified on Truth Social. Other places won't verify the guy. He's got the check mark. He is verified on Truth Social. And he probably should be verified on Truth Social. He got it. They verified him. They allowed him to post the content, but they put a sensitive content warning over it so the user can decide to see it or not. But he's allowed to post it, and it's not being taken down. It's just that people aren't being forced to see it. They're given a choice. That's option 2. Option 3 is they just delete Stu Peters. They delete the post. Stu Peters is banned. Obviously not ideal. Those are the 3 choices that Truth Social has. Go it alone like Gab has done, which is not ideal and will always limit their growth. Censor everybody the way that big tech wants them to by deleting posts and banning people from their platform. That's not ideal. That's not what Truth Social is about. Or if they can show the powers that be at Google and Apple, Stu Peters posted something, but we put a sensitive content warning on there. Nobody can see it unless they absolutely want to see it, and he didn't break any laws. Maybe you appease the mob a little bit. You keep them at bay, and you keep your platform going. Stu Peters can still post what he wants. If you are a Stu Peters fan, you can see what you want to see. And Truth Social is still available on Apple and eventually Google. Those are the options that you have, folks. Going forward, until a full parallel economy is built, Those are your only options. And one of them is vastly superior to the others. And right now, still brand new, less than a week old, but right now, Truth Social is towing that line very good. So, people can complain about it, and if Stu Peters doesn't like it, that's fine. He has other options. That's why it's so important for a Gab to exist. And he posts to Gab, and it's great that he's able to post to Gab, and Gab doesn't censor it, and he's on Telegram, and Telegram doesn't censor it. But they've come for Telegram. They've come for Signal. They've come for all of those platforms. And the only reason that Telegram isn't gone yet is because Telegram isn't that big yet. But they've tried, and they will come for them again. But Telegram is basically hands-off, which is kind of what Gab is. So they will come for them. But it's, you have some choices if you're going to do something like this. And those choices are not all great. In a perfect world, could you be on the Apple Store and be on the Android Store, and as long as somebody didn't post illegal content, they would be allowed to post it? Yeah, in a perfect world, that would absolutely be the case. It's not. It's not. And frankly, I think that, places like Gab are really missing some opportunity. Gab and Parler, they're missing opportunities to make their own apps and just make them self-downloadable. That's what they should be doing. Just linking to their mobile website is not good enough, in my opinion. But they could do a lot more to help people who produce content and are able to share that content on their platforms. They don't. They're not great at that at all. And those are places that they need to grow. Facebook, Twitter, and other places, much easier to share content than it is on Gab or Parler or even Getter. Once you get to that point where you make it easy for people to share what they produce with your audience on your network, you're going to make things a lot easier on those creators, because we don't have the time. That's really what it is. We don't have the time. You should be, first of all my sticking point, and I think most of you know this, I only got a couple minutes left. My sticking point on a lot of these social networks are, if you're in the news media, if you are a celebrity, you should be verified automatically. Automatically. I don't care how small you are. I don't care how big you are. If you are a public figure that is recognizable in your community, or you work for an official outlet, boom, you are verified. Beyond that, you go through and maybe you look at audience size, maybe you look at, impressions or what have you, because there's a lot of people that nobody know that have a lot of followers, and there's a lot of people who are very well known in their own community who don't have a ton of followers, or do have a ton of followers, and they can't get verified. Most of you know my issues with verification. It all came down to politics, and finally when my company got involved, Twitter verified me. Facebook still won't. Getter won't verify me. Getter won't verify me. I was on Tucker Carlson last week. They won't verify me. But I saw an account on Getter the other day. Dude had like 140 followers. And I'm not diminishing that, but he had 140 followers. He wasn't affiliated with any company that I could see or production that I could see, and he was verified. Why? How did that guy get verified? He didn't appear to be connected with anything that would be verifiable. So why was he verified? I don't know. Why did Twitter verify a dog? They did. And some people who didn't ask to be verified on Twitter get verified. On Twitter, they wake up one day and they're verified. There was that model who had one arm. She got verified. Well, she's not even a model. She just had a Tinder profile. And she got verified by Twitter one day. She's like, I didn't ask for this. What the heck is going on? But members of the news media couldn't get verified. People who had massive social media followings or produced, YouTube content, and they were creators, and they couldn't get verified. None of that makes sense. And I see Getter doing the same thing. On Gab, you can't get verified unless you pay Torba money. And I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's wrong. If somebody is legitimate, you should verify. It's the idea that you have to pay somebody for the opportunity to be verified is ridiculous. So they all have issues. Every social network that is in existence right now has issues, and you're going to have your preferred platform, and that's fine for you to have your preferred platform. If people like Stu Peters want to be on Gab where they won't have the sensitive content warning put on their content, That is their right, and it's great that they have a place to go do that. But it's not censorship. And Stu Peters saying it's censorship is wrong. And Colin McHugh, once again, writing another frivolous censorship article saying it's censorship is also wrong. Love the National File, though. Man, great publication. Really good website. Great information on there. A lot of good work. But on that, not a fan. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. A little extra time today since we didn't have a show yesterday because of the event that we're doing at Monterey Mexican Bar and Grill. So I do appreciate all of your time today. I guess I'll hop over here and see if there's any questions. Let's see. Yeah, let's just do this. Why not? Why not? I got a couple minutes. I'm feeling gracious. What else do we have here? Oh, Barry, this guy's a complete comment. He's talking about the Arizona representative. Yeah, he sure looks that way. Hashin 256, if he wants to claim censorship, go after every record media company that made a clean or explicit content. Yep, that's true. It's not censorship. I don't know how else to put it. It isn't. But like I said, if you don't force people to see content that Apple or Google would find objectionable and be able to remove your app from their store because of, extremist content, which is what they're going to try and do with True Social like they do with every other network, that could be a way around that. We'll just put a sensitive content thing on there. We won't remove anything. We're not going to mess with Stu Peters or anybody else who posts that stuff at all. And the user will be able to decide if they see it or not. And of course, Stu Peters people are going to want to see it, so they'll click on it. He's not going to have any limitations on his reach that way. But it's not censorship. I don't know how else to say it. Barry, paying to be verified is like paying a local newspaper for a write-up. Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who don't remember, when Gab was first coming back after they had been banned, and they first came back, they had their own servers and everything else, and I was really frustrated with Twitter. I reached out to Torba. I tagged Torba on Twitter. I posted to Torba on Gab, and I said, if you verify my account, I will delete my Twitter today. And all I got was, here's the premium package. It's like, what? No, I'm not going to pay you. I'm a member of the news media who talks to 72,000 people when my show airs every day. And I've been on Fox News. I've hosted nationally syndicated shows. I have a news show that is in addition to my radio show. I've built up large followings on other social platforms, but they've been dwindled and censored and deleted and that sort of stuff. So I'm left with Facebook, which only has about 11,000 people. And I haven't devoted time into building up the other stuff. The best that we did in an alternative platform for building up following was on D Live. And we were one of the top shows on D Live until D Live got bought by BitTorrent, and BitTorrent decided that they did not want people like me on their platform and shut it down. I don't know what else to say. I've never seen growth like we had on D Live before D Live shut us down. I've never seen it. And it was just amazing stuff. So can't stream to, they just unlocked my Facebook, so I can stream to Facebook now. But I wasn't allowed to stream to Facebook. Nobody's allowed to see my posts. I just did another post on Facebook about what I think they want me to do because my last air quote violation was 11 months ago and they're still limiting my page. And what they want is Facebook wants me to delete myself as an admin. So I guess I have to create another account and then go to Facebook and become an admin of my page as the new account and then delete my normal account as an admin for them to unlock my page and let it go. Go figure. It's strange. Very, very strange. All right. Okay. Still cannot get on TS in line. I don't know what any of that means. I don't know what any of that means. So you'll just have to hit me up on Discord or something. All right. I got to roll. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure you share the stream. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so. We'll be back at 3 p.m. Eastern time for the radio show for 90.